Rain fell in thin silver lines over the quiet roadside diner, the kind that stayed open long after most lights in town had gone out. The sign flickered in tired neon, Maggie's Diner, buzzing faintly in the night. Inside, a woman in a faded blue apron wiped down the counter for what felt like the 1,000th time, her eyes red and tired. Her name was Lila, and the world had been unkind lately. Her bills stacked higher than her paychecks, her car had given up on her, and tonight her landlord had sent her a final notice. Tomorrow, she'd have nowhere to go. Outside, through the falling rain, the deep rumble of a motorcycle broke the silence. It wasn't the sharp, reckless growl of a racer, but a slower, heavier hum that echoed with distance and weight, the sound of someone who had been riding a long time, maybe from something they didn't want to remember. The biker rolled up beside the diner, rainwater dripping from his leather jacket, helmet tucked under one arm. His name was Cole, broad-shouldered, mid-30s, a man whose face carried the quiet exhaustion of someone who'd seen too much. He'd once been part of a group, a life that rode on noise, speed, and anger. But that was before everything changed. Before he walked away from the only thing that made him feel alive. When Cole stepped inside the diner, the small bell over the door chimed softly. The smell of coffee and fried eggs hit him, and for a moment, it almost felt like peace. Lila looked up, startled. It was nearly midnight, and she hadn't expected anyone this late. Especially not someone who looked like him, soaked from the rain, with a calm but unreadable face. She forced a polite smile, her voice soft but weary. "Kitchen's about to close, but I can get you coffee. Maybe pie?" Cole's voice was deep, rough around the edges. "Coffee's good. Whatever you've got left." As she poured the steaming cup, her hands trembled slightly. She hoped he wouldn't notice, but he did. He noticed everything, the way her eyes avoided his, the faint redness around them, the strain in her voice when she tried to sound fine. He took a sip, set the cup down, and studied her for a moment. "Long night?" he asked. She gave a small laugh, the kind that wasn't really laughter. "Long month," she said. He nodded quietly, looking out at the rain streaking the windows. "Yeah, know what that feels like." Neither said much after that. The diner was nearly empty, just the hum of the coffee machine and the rain outside. But there was a kind of stillness that wasn't uncomfortable, two tired souls sharing the same silence. When Lila turned to wipe another table, Cole's gaze drifted to the photo taped to the wall behind the counter, a little boy, maybe 6 years old, missing a front tooth and holding a baseball glove. Beneath it, in fading marker, were the words, "My reason for everything, Jake." Cole's chest tightened. Something about that picture, the joy in it, the hope, hit deeper than he expected. He hadn't seen his own son in years. He'd missed every birthday since he walked out, too ashamed of the man he'd become to come back. When Lila noticed him looking, she hesitated. "That's my boy," she said softly. "He's with my sister tonight. I try to keep him out of the diner as much as I can. He deserves better." Cole didn't respond right away. He just nodded, the rain light glinting off his eyes. "He's got a good smile," he said finally. Lila smiled faintly. "Yeah, he does. His dad's not around anymore. Been just me for a while." Cole lowered his eyes to the coffee, letting the words sink in. He knew what it was to leave. He knew what it cost. As she moved around the diner, he watched her more closely, not in the way men look at women, but the way someone looks at a person trying hard not to fall apart. She was kind even when she was tired. Gentle even when the world hadn't been. When he finished his coffee, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a few bills. More than enough to pay for it, way more. He set them down quietly on the counter. Lila frowned when she saw it. "Hey, that's too much," she said, shaking her head. "It's just coffee." He shrugged, standing up to leave. "Guess I'm just paying for the quiet." Before she could argue, he pushed the door open and stepped back into the rain. Lila watched him from the window, that lone figure walking toward his motorcycle under the soft yellow streetlight, his jacket dark and glistening, the night swallowing him as he rode off. She didn't know it then, but she'd see him again. The next morning, she came to open the diner early and froze when she saw what was outside. Parked beside the entrance was a motorcycle, the same one from last night. And leaning against it, a man with a faint smile and 2 paper bags in his hands. "Didn't think you'd be open this early," Cole said, holding up the bags. "Brought breakfast. Thought you might not have time to grab any." She blinked in surprise. You didn't have to do that." "Yeah," he said with a small shrug. "I know." He followed her inside as she unlocked the door, setting the food down on the counter. They sat together in the quiet morning light, eating in comfortable silence. For the first time in weeks, Lila didn't feel alone. As days turned into weeks, Cole started stopping by more often, sometimes to eat, sometimes just to sit in the corner and drink coffee while she worked. He never said much about himself, but now and then, she caught something in his eyes, a story, a wound he wasn't ready to tell. She didn't press. She just let him be. And little by little, that broken man who had once ridden through life with nothing but regret began to find something he hadn't felt in years: belonging. The days passed, and with every visit, Cole's presence at the diner became something quietly constant. He always sat at the same corner booth near the window, always ordered coffee first, and always left more than he owed. Lila had stopped arguing about the extra money, though sometimes she'd leave him a slice of pie wrapped in foil with a note that said, "On the house." Cole never said much, but Lila could tell that he watched more than he spoke. He noticed when her apron strap tore, when her hands shook after a long shift, and when she smiled through exhaustion. He had the look of someone who had spent most of his life fighting storms, and now he was just learning to stand still in the rain. One Friday night, as thunder rolled low across the sky, Lila was the only waitress left on shift. The rain was heavy again. It always seemed to rain when he showed up. The bell above the door rang softly, and there he was. Cole stepped inside, water dripping from his jacket, eyes calm but shadowed. "You look like you've been through hell," Lila teased gently. "Been through worse," he said with a faint grin, sitting down. "At least this time, there's pie waiting." She laughed softly, the sound breaking the tension like sunlight through clouds. But that night wasn't like the others. The power flickered once, twice, then went out completely. The diner fell into dim candlelight and the sound of rain. For a moment, it felt like the world had slowed down just for them. Lila lit a few more candles, the glow warm against the dark. "Guess we're closed until the lights come back," she said. Cole nodded slowly. "Could be worse. I've eaten in worse lighting." They sat together in the booth by the window, the faint glow of candles dancing across their faces. Lila told him about her son, how Jake dreamed of being a firefighter, how she'd promised him a better life. Cole listened quietly, really listened, something most people forgot how to do. When she asked about him, he hesitated. His gaze drifted toward the window where rain streaked down the glass. "Used to ride with a group," he said finally. "We called ourselves brothers, but we weren't. Got into things we shouldn't have. I lost people. Lost myself. One night, I just kept riding, didn't stop until I ended up here." Lila didn't judge. She just looked at him with soft eyes, as if seeing the man he could be, not the one he'd been. "Maybe stopping here was the point," she said quietly. For the first time in a long time, Cole smiled without pain behind it. The next few weeks brought small changes. Cole started helping around the diner, fixing the leaky faucet, repainting the back door, and replacing a broken light. He never asked for anything in return. When Lila protested, he just said, "You give people warm meals. The least I can do is give you a working door." One afternoon, her son Jake came by after school. He stopped short when he saw Cole, staring at the tall man with the black motorcycle gloves. "Is he scary?" Jake whispered to his mom. Lila smiled. "Not even a little." Cole crouched down to Jake's level. "Hey, buddy. You like bikes?" Jake's eyes lit up instantly. "Yeah. My mom says they're too loud, though." Cole chuckled. "She's right. They are. But sometimes loud things aren't bad, they just need the right rider." That day, Cole let Jake sit on his motorcycle. The boys' laughter filled the parking lot, echoing across the empty road. Lila stood by the door, watching a lump forming in her throat. In that moment, something changed. Cole wasn't just a stranger who stopped by anymore. He had become part of their quiet world, the missing piece neither of them knew they needed. But life, as it often does, tested that peace. One night, a man came into the diner rough, drunk, and angry. He was a regular Lila had stopped serving weeks ago for refusing to pay his tab. This time, his voice was louder, his words meaner. Cole was sitting at his booth, watching quietly. When the man slammed his hand on the counter, shouting at Lila, Jake peeked out from the kitchen, frightened. Cole stood slowly, walked over, and placed a calm but firm hand on the man's shoulder. "That's enough," Cole said quietly. The drunk man turned, scoffing. "Who the hell are you?" Cole's eyes were steady. "Someone who's asking you to walk away." The diner went silent except for the rain outside. The drunk hesitated, then muttered something under his breath and stumbled out. Cole didn't say another word. He just walked back to his booth and finished his coffee. After closing, Lila approached him, still shaken. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Yeah," Cole replied, eyes on his cup. "I did." She wanted to thank him, but words wouldn't come. So instead, she reached across the counter and placed her hand gently over his. "Maybe you didn't just stop here," she said. "Maybe you came home." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The storm outside had faded to a soft drizzle, the sound of the rain like a heartbeat against the window. Weeks later, the diner reopened with fresh paint, new lights, and something else, warmth. Cole had helped rebuild it piece by piece, fixing not just the place, but the people inside it. He'd started working full-time, delivering supplies, keeping the place running. And sometimes, when the day was done and Jake was asleep in the back booth, Cole and Lila would sit by the window, 2 mugs of coffee between them, watching the road stretch out into the dark. He no longer felt the urge to ride away. The road still called him sometimes, the open sky, the sound of the wind. But every time he looked at her, and at the little boy sleeping with his head on the counter, he realized something he'd spent his whole life chasing. Freedom wasn't about leaving. It was about finding a reason to stay. And for the first time in years, Cole had won.